Why did the man's wife turn into a pillar of salt? Why did he offer his daughters to the men of Sodom? And what happened when the angels visited him? Hi everyone, my name is Elizabeth, and I'm here to bring you another Bible story of how crime, wars, and sin all started. Lot is a man of God and the nephew of the great prophet Abraham. Following God's instructions, Abraham was asked to leave his homeland and set out for places unknown, and he took along his nephew Lot. They headed out with absolute faith and had no idea what their destination was. But as they approached a land that God had chosen for them, they would stop and pitch their tents. Once God was done with them at that location, he would tell them to move on to the next destination, and so on. They would stop and set up their tents and their altar for worship, and then move on. The first place they stopped was called Shechem. God appeared to Abraham and said, "To your descendants, I will give this land." It was a huge property that was just beautiful. So after being there a while, the time came, and they left there and continued their journey until they finally arrived in Egypt. Once in Egypt, Abraham got himself into a little trouble. So he, his wife, and Lot were all asked to leave. So they left and travelled southward. They returned to one of the places they had already been previously, and where an altar had already been set up for worship. Unfortunately, Abraham and Lot both had so many tents, people, and livestock, the land could not support them all. The herdsmen were all fighting amongst each other as to where each flock could eat. So Abraham tells Lot, "Let's not have our herdsmen fighting with each other and everyone being unhappy." He tells Lot, "You see all this land out before you? Well, you choose which part of it you want, and I'll take the other part." And of course Lot looks around and chooses the plains of Jordan, seeing that it is lush and green, reminding him of the Garden of Eden. So he says to Abraham, "I choose this land," and he departs and goes east and sets up all his tents, and now he is living on the edge of the city of Sodom, which is a city that is filled with wicked people. Abraham takes the other part of the land. Now Lot, living by Sodom, got into some trouble. A war had broken out in the valley of Siddim. It was 5 kings against 4 kings. And of the 5 kings was the king of Sodom and the king of Gomorrah. As the war progressed, the king of Sodom and the king of Gomorrah and their soldiers, feeling they had lost, turned and fled to the mountains. Then the 4 kings went and took all the goods and provisions and people of Sodom and Gomorrah. This includes taking Lot and all his possessions. So a person who escaped being captured went and found Abraham and told him what happened, and that the kings had taken Lot and all his possessions. So Abraham gathered 300 of his servants, who were trained warriors, to go with him to get all the people and possessions back, including his nephew and all his goods. So that's what they did. They chased down the kings and attacked them by night, got all the people and possessions, and brought them back to their homes. The Lord and 2 angels had come to visit Abraham, and after having supper with him, they went on their way. Abraham was walking with them to send them off, and the Lord spoke to him and said, "I am not going to hide from you what I am doing. I have heard an outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah, and it is great, and because the sin there is so bad, I'm going to see what is happening down there, and if I find that it is very bad, then I'm going to destroy the cities, and I will know." And the 2 angels departed and headed to Sodom, but God was still talking to Abraham, and Abraham, fearing for his nephew's life, asked the Lord to spare Lot and his family and anyone else found to be righteous, and God agreed to spare them. Although nobody else was found righteous except for Lot and his family. Anyways, the 2 angels arrive at the gate of Sodom, and they come across Lot, who is sitting there. Lot jumped to his feet and bowed his face to the ground, and then said to them, "Please come to my house and spend the night, and then you can wash your feet and go on your way in the morning." And they said, "No, we will stay in the square." But Lot insisted, so they went with Lot and had supper with him. Just before they were going to go to bed, men from the city of Sodom, young and old, surrounded the house. They started calling out to Lot to send out his visitors so that they might have their way with them. So Lot went through his front door, quickly closing it behind him, and said, "Please, my brethren, do not be so wicked. I have 2 virgin daughters you can have instead. Please let me bring them to you, and you may do to them as you wish. Only do not hurt these men, since this is the reason they have come to my house." And they said, "Stand back. And because you want to protect these men, we will be worse to you than we will be to your guests." They started coming towards Lot, but just then the two men grabbed Lot, pulled him into the house, and shut the door. They then struck all the men surrounding the house with a bright light, so that the men could no longer see to find the door. Then the men told Lot he needed to gather up all his family and leave the city, because the sin there was so great that God had sent them to destroy it. So Lot went and told his sons-in-law, and told them what the men said, and they needed to leave. But they thought he was joking, and they chose to stay. His daughters, however, left with him. When the morning came, the angels told Lot to hurry on his way, and to take his wife and 2 daughters with him to the mountains, and not to look back, nor stay anywhere on the plain. Lot asked that they could go to the small city of Zoar, since it was far enough away, but it wouldn't be in the mountains where he would have no comforts. So God allowed him to go to the city of Zoar and told him to hurry, because he couldn't do anything until they arrived there. When the sun rose the next morning, Lot arrived at Zoar. Then the Lord rained fire and brimstone on Sodom and Gomorrah from out of the heavens. So God overthrew those cities, all the plain, all the people of those cities, and anything growing from the ground. And Lot's wife, upon entering the new city, looked back longingly at Sodom, and the Lord immediately turned her into a pillar of salt for having more affection for Sodom than for the Lord. Then the next morning, Abraham went up early and stood before the Lord, and he looked over towards the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and the plains where Lot had once been living, and there was nothing left. The smoke, like from a furnace, was still rising, and there was nothing but ashes everywhere. It was total destruction. There was nothing left. So, because of Abraham and his relationship with the Lord, Lot was saved from this devastation. So, Lot, after the loss of his wife and becoming old, became afraid and left the city of Zoar. He went up into the mountains with his 2 daughters and lived in a cave. Now, the 2 daughters got to talking, and the younger one told the older one, "What are we going to do? Our father has no heir. Let's get him drunk and lie with him so we can preserve our father's lineage." "Yeah, there's a good idea." So they agreed, and that's just what they did. The oldest daughter got him drunk and went into him the first night. The younger one did the same thing the next night, and they both conceived sons from their father Lot. The oldest one named her son Moab, meaning through our father, and he became the father of the Moabites. The younger sister named her son Ben-Ammi, meaning son of my kin, and he became the father of the Ammonites. And both boys, having been born through sin, grew up to be absolutely horrible people who did terrible things, and to this day are the worst enemies of the Israelites. After this, there is nothing more said about Lot in the Bible. It does not even say when he died. We can assume, because Abraham's story continues well past Lot's story, that Lot died before Abraham. Lot started out in a very good direction following his uncle and the Lord, but then he made a lot of bad choices and let his greed and pride consume him until he had nothing left. And as a result, his descendants became a line of sinful people. If you enjoyed this story, do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button, as well as the bell notification. That way you can always follow me for a lot more crime-filled stories of the Bible. See you in the next sinful story. And, as always, thanks for watching.